Orange Cassidy. Let's talk about Orange Cassidy. What a quaint character. Isn't he amusing? He's funny. He's a funny guy in the show, and people love him because he's got such a laissez-faire attitude, and he just doesn't care about what's going on. He walks around, hands in his pockets, and he kind of kicks you a bit, and he won't take his shades off. Who wears their sunglasses in the middle of the day? Let me ask you that question. I don't have a problem with Orange Cassidy existing in the Orange Cassidy world, but when you invade Le Champion's world, then you've got a big problem, because I don't like Orange Cassidy. I think he's got a bad attitude. I don't think he belongs in AEW, and he definitely doesn't belong in the same ring as Le Champion.
Putting Le Champion's hands in his pocket. Back from, Hager swinging a miss, Jericho swinging a miss.
Orange Cassidy is a very unique dude. I have to admit, when I first saw him, I wasn't impressed. I've changed my mind. I'm a big Orange Cassidy fan because he's different, he's unique.
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andy, joined by my guys, Big Match AJ and Philip Domino. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. Wrote Red. That's basically been my life.
The same old gimmick. If you have been with us for 101 episodes now, you've probably heard AJ talk about how he's writing a script or reading a script about 80 of those episodes. But it's all true. Yeah. That's basically AJ's. That's your thing, man, and we're happy for you for it. We've seen you grow with it over the last year with the podcast. So
thank you, man.
It might be a little redundant for the listeners, but it's because that's what you do. Like that. I mean, it's cool. Phil, how you doing?
Terrible.
Our boy Phil isn't having the best night, but we're here for the All Elite podcast, so hopefully things will turn around. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good conversation talking about Fyter Fest Night 2. Some people might be aware of the fact that potentially Night 2 has already been spoiled if you've looked up the spoilers, but I don't know. It's a weird thing because a lot of the major websites aren't picking up any of this news, any of the 4-1 Mania. Meltzer hasn't reported it. And it's kind of a weird thing to me because they generally report normal spoilers. They've reported the major spoiler coming out of NXT this week. So are these faulty spoilers where they put on Reddit to just throw people off the scent? Who knows? But I haven't dug too deep into the spoilers. I know you guys said you haven't really dug into it, but it's a little bit of a bummer. That this week too has come into this situation where there are people posting the results of what has already happened.
Yeah, and like you said, with the major sites not covering it, maybe it's from a source that just isn't up to snuff. Maybe it's not accurate. Maybe it is. It's hard to say, but I really have been avoiding them like the plague because I don't want to get spoiled for Fyter Fest because I'm kind of excited for this show. So I don't know. I don't have too strong of an opinion on it because of that, just because of how harshly I've been avoiding it. Like, until you said 411 and Meltzer didn't cover it, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, It's just something interesting I've noticed.
Same, AJ. I also didn't know that. Spoilers in wrestling are kind of the thing that took me out of wrestling for a while because I became so heavily involved in reading forums and shit like that. You kind of know what's coming, and especially if you don't like what's coming, it really takes you out of the product. So I've done a really good job so far avoiding the spoilers, and if spoilers are going to be a thing because of the resurgence of the coronavirus, I'll do my best to avoid them.
Yeah, and that would be something kind of a bummer. That's something I mentioned on social media this week. We have a situation where we introduce fans, and within introducing real-life fans, we almost immediately get some type of spoilers leaked out. And it's one of those situations where if we're taping weeks in advance, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's just an inevitable thing. Hopefully it's not something that's consistently happening because, like I said, they had weeks in the past where there were no spoilers, nothing put up, and they had avoided it. But it wasn't until now that we have fans again that this is changing, and it's not for the better. So hopefully it's not something that happens consistently. We'll be back to a live format for Fight for the Fallen the following week. So I don't know. And I thought it was weird, too. You're taping a week in advance. Moxley had tested for coronavirus, or he He tested negative for coronavirus the night of Dynamite last week, so why couldn't he wrestle the next night? It's so strange to me. I get that they were being as precautionary as possible, but it just seems like it was too much of an oversight at this point. Like they cherry picked with this one, and it just, I don't know, it was too nitpicky.
It is strange, but also, I guess you have that worry of like, well, if let's say Joey Janela gets the coronavirus, that's one thing. If the world champion gets coronavirus, that's another. It looks worse. So you want to be protective of that. But I do agree, it's odd and it's cherry picking, and it's cherry picking maybe for a good reason, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just at a point with it where I think that they probably could have had the match. And again, I understand it. You don't, I mean, to the point of, it's not even a point of do we want Moxley at the show or do we want our champion to be sick. It's a matter of do we want our champion getting everyone else sick. Like, that would be the bigger issue. If it's a Joey Janela get everyone sick, yeah, that's a problem, but it's not our world champion. So I get it. I get that they took the extra precautions. They wanted to do as much as they could. It would have looked so bad if they did bring Mox in. But in hindsight, and it's easier to make that decision in hindsight, but just to say, they probably could have just ran things as planned, and it probably would have been better. But going into this show, it's interesting because it leads up to a situation. I don't know if you guys saw the announcement. I don't have it on our rundown, but that might as well be how we just start the conversation. Taz is apparently going to make some huge announcement on this week's show, so I don't understand what that could even possibly be.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, they're not doing an interim title, so it's not that. Maybe Brian Cage. Well, I would say Brian Cage might be wrestling someone else, but the card is already kind of full, so that can't be it. Yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of those things where they say there's going to be some huge announcement, and because Taz is a heel character, it's probably going to be some shit like, oh, just in, Moxley's a coward. Or something like that. You know, it's not. I don't believe there's actually going to be a real, like, genuine, groundbreaking announcement. I thought the way that they did it made sense a little bit because this was taped like the day after the first night, or maybe it was even taped the night of the first night. And at that point, it was only like 2 or 3 days after the whole Renee Young thing had come out in the first place. So being cautious is a good thing, especially when people nowadays are being critical for WWE for handling it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And you kind of see how they got it wrong, and you kind of want to do it in a way that feels right, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
In another sense, though, like, you're putting on wrestling during coronavirus. Like, there's a group of people surrounding a ring. There's 2 people doing body-on-body contact. There's nothing right about it to begin with. So, to a sense, it's like, well,
I do get wanting
what.
to take the precautions, and it was probably, like, honestly, a Moxley call where he's like, no, we're not going to do this the wrong way. We're not going to do it like them. I don't care if I'm the champion. Do what you have to do. And they did make a substantial decision, pushing the match back next week. It works. And in this announcement, who knows what it could be? I think it'll probably just be like he gets to choose the stipulation, and it's some weird kind of match that they throw together. That's not that weird because it's the same. But yeah, it's just because, and it could easily be a thing where Tony Khan realized he screwed us over, so we demanded that we choose the match type, like anything like that. So I don't know. It's just a weird way they're promoting that Taz has a major announcement, but not really getting too in depth of what it is, I guess. And it's hard to assume because what could Taz possibly have to actually say? He said everything last week. That's, I guess, my biggest point.
Yeah, so I mean, they must have something going on. Like you said, maybe a stipulation, but they have to have something if it's supposed to be a huge announcement. Taz is going to be talking.
Yeah.
A stipulation is probably the most logical thing that's going to happen where it actually is a thing. Like, my scenario was something that it's an announcement, but it's not really anything. That's an announcement that leads somewhere, but it isn't like the groundbreaking announcement that they're advertising it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a logical step.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it's interesting just to see them throwing in another step to this storyline because it was just they sort of sealed it up last week with Taz's promo. So then to have Taz cut another promo, it's just weird. What else could be said? How impactful will it actually be, especially the way that they're promoting it? But we'll have to wait and see. Another thing that you can definitely feel is a storyline brewing is Nyla Rose being in action for this show. They haven't announced her opponents whatsoever, but she apparently also has a major announcement. So who knows? I don't really expect too much of her major announcement. I'm obviously hoping at some point we see Tessa Blanchard in AEW, but I don't feel like this would really make sense to introduce her with Nyla Rose.
It wouldn't.
Against Nyla, but...
It wouldn't. I want to see Tessa just for the sake of Tessa, but there's a way better way you could bring her in. And just saying, hey, Nyla Rose is a big announcement. It's Tessa Blanchard is kind of weird. It would be cooler if it was just another, like, monster opponent for her. Like they teased Aja Kong so long ago. They teased Awesome Kong getting into matches. I don't know if Awesome Kong is obviously no longer filming because nobody's filming right now. So her schedule's freed up. So maybe that. I don't know.
It will be pretty disappointing if this doesn't have some kind of shocking element to it. I've been spammed on Twitter with AEW notifications about this segment, so I'm hoping at least it is worth my viewing, because if it's a squash match, I'm going to be pretty upset.
Yeah, I agree with you there. They've kind of pushed it in a way that it seems really important, but we don't know. Like, it's kind of in the same vein as what we just talked about. How much more important can they make Nyla Rose at this point without just putting her into the title picture? And if that's all it is, it's going to be really awkward, too, because they've hyped it up as a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that in some way this segment elevates the women's division and isn't just kind of like a throwaway segment that you've seen in the past with AEW's women's segments, because they always get their one segment in every show, and sometimes it's not even worth having. So if this is just going to be like a squash match to remind us that Nyla Rose is a dominant force, it's kind of wasted.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% that it's definitely, because we've seen that. We've seen it plenty of times. I don't really understand the purpose of seeing it again here, especially when there are just other characters, especially in the women's division, I would like to see developed a little more. So yeah, it's strange, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that hopefully they do something cool, because Nyla does have that potential. But if it's just the same old thing, I'm wondering why they're promoting it so much more than that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. That's why I'm hoping it's like an Awesome Kong thing, because if you have Nyla Rose fight an Awesome Kong, then one, you can introduce another woman into the roster, which is now very, kind of drying up. And it's a thin roster, and you could have either Nyla go over and her look strong going into maybe All Out, or you could have Awesome Kong look strong going into All Out. And I'm hoping it's Awesome Kong.
AJ, you always want it to be Awesome Kong, though. No matter
what
way you
awesome
can
Kong.
involve Awesome Kong or Aja Kong, or it's almost it's as bad. It's as consistent as my Jake Hager take, where I want to see Jake Hager just dominate.
Do you not though? I want to see that. Do you not want to see this?
I would, but it just seems like I would like to see it. I just don't know what's going on with, especially Awesome Kong. I would love to see her in AEW. It felt like something that would be more consistent before, but we definitely haven't really seen it to that point at this point.
Definitely.
So, I just hope they deliver something for the women here, because that's what we need. The women's division is the one that's struggling the most, in my opinion. So, I mean, and that's almost a given. I don't think that's even just in my opinion type thing. Like, and Nyla Rose isn't the one to fix it, but if you can introduce some type of storyline for her through this, then yeah.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree there.
Yeah. And an example of that, with the Dark Order is a group that we all definitely did not like. We've kind of turned a corner on it recently, and that's because of storyline work. So, I mean, that's kind of my point. And we have Dark Order taking on SCU on the second night of Fyter Fest. It's not a huge match, but it does have some real interesting implications just in terms of almost story building and character building in AEW, which we just don't get in many other companies.
Yeah. This is an interesting one because Yeah, it could go either way. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say I really hope Colt Cabana goes full heel and joins the Dark Order and beats down SCU. And it's like, screw you guys. You didn't do anything for me when I came in, and these guys helped me win. I would really like to see that. I don't know if that's what they're going to do. It might just be, these are the guys who I helped when I first came into this company. These are the guys who had my back, so I'm going to stick with them. SCU, that is. But I really hope they don't go that route, the obvious face turn, which it's not even a face turn. He's not even a heel.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising to me that a Colt Cabana match, storyline-wise, is the second most interesting match to me on this card. If you had told me that a month ago, I would have spit in your face. This is a great match, man, because I really don't know what direction it's going to go. In all of the other matches on this card, I kind of have a sense of where they want me to believe it's going to go. This one, I don't know where it's going to go. If, like AJ said, and I've repeated this week after week, if this is leading up to Colt Cabana versus Brody Lee, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really cares about that. But this unexpected route where Colt Cabana might join the Dark Order, because the Dark Order has been trying to recruit people since they've basically been a thing.
Yeah.
If they don't recruit anybody, who cares? But if they start recruiting lower card people like Colt Cabana and Allie J and whoever the fuck,
Anna J, bro.
it's interesting.
Anna J. She has a name. She's legit. Anna J. But no, I mean, I agree with you guys, especially to the point of we have to do, like, I don't necessarily think it has to be a full-blown Colt heel turn at this point. I wouldn't mind a slow burn, but at the same time, I don't really expect it. I expect the almost exact opposite, because as common as it is in wrestling, I just expect them to do the common thing where the face turns face and joins his old group and just does his old thing, because I don't see this idea of Colt really turning against SCU and becoming this heel, because as much as we like the idea, I feel like that's still like a minority. Like the guys within AEW especially would be like, well, he's a great merch seller, his podcast did so great, all this stuff, like why make him a heel? And so in that case, I almost expect like this, if that's the route they're going to go, this would be the show where you do that, where you have him be the babyface and join his group and stuff. So that's kind of the route I'm expecting, but who knows?
Yeah, another thing that makes this match interesting is because in the early stages of AEW, SCU was one of the hottest tag teams in the entire division, and since they lost the titles, they kind of like, their momentum has stopped. They still have that name value because they were champions. They were the first champions, and they were champions for a decently long time, but they haven't really done anything since then, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Dark Order gets the win here. And again, that's why the match is so interesting to me, because it can go either way.
Yeah, exactly, and we only get so many AEW matches like that, you know what I mean? And
exactly.
we get them more in AEW than in other companies, but and the nice thing is in AEW we get that upset result in a way that kind of makes sense. It's not just randomly thrown in there. So and it's a good win for the Dark Order. We talk about significant victories every once in a while on this podcast. Beating the first tag team champions isn't a bad victory, you know?
Exactly.
Definitely.
So hopefully we see that, and I would like to see it for Colt. That would be a really interesting storyline for him. I don't, like we've said, him versus Brody, that's not interesting. There's no, like, it doesn't really matter how good the promo Colt could cut is unless it's literally destroying the character of Brody and just being like, you came in here as this fake like, that's the only way it could be even good for Colt, but it would destroy Brody. So the story between those two makes no sense. But if you put them together, it can elevate them.
A rivalry on that level reminds me of the Jake Hager, Dustin Rhodes. Kind of. That's the level.
That's a blood feud that's still
existing.
What are you talking about? That's legit, dude. He just cost
Hager
the title last week.
That's the kind of level I would see that feud
legit.
on.
That's a real feud.
It's a feud they want me to care about, but I just don't.
A 6-month long disaster.
Like the most I've ever taken Colt Cabana seriously was his feud against Homicide, which is going to be obscure, I know. But he got really serious in that, and Homicide was bringing out like a darker side of Colt Cabana. So maybe if they go a route where they make Colt Cabana take away all the silly gag shit and just be a serious ass angry motherfucker, it could be okay. But like Phil said, I don't think I'm going to care.
Yeah, and well, that's something that Cole on his podcast has talked about a couple times, is his heel character, and it's not something I've actually seen, but the way he describes it was very long ago, so it was like, it's obviously not a way he could do it now, but he talks about him as a heel, and it's just something that's unbelievable, because us as fans of Colt Cabana, you really only know him as this comedy, like, you know what I mean? Or no, do you disagree, Phil?
Let's not all group us in as fans as Colt Cabana.
All right, no, that's fair. That's fair. But hey, people who have watched Colt Cabana, I should say,
followers of his career.
We know that he's more of a comedic style athlete.
Yeah.
So to see this interesting, different perspective for him, maybe Phil will become a fan. That would be the most interesting, I think, scenario of all of this. So. I'm optimistic for what they could do with Colt, but I expect it to just sort of be the same old, same old. And in the same old continuing, this Lance Archer versus Joey Janela match, I feel for our boy Joey, man. I feel like they've got to have a couple squashes on this show because they tried to pack too much into one night. And I don't feel like Joey's going to get too much time. I don't feel like there's too much of a story.
This at 3 minutes, if I recall. That was Phil's estimation.
It was 5.
5 minutes. All right.
I could see it starting at 5 at the top of the show, but then because all these marks like to take too long, it's going to turn down to 3. They had to cut it down to 3.
Yeah, I don't. This is obvious. Lance Archer's going to win. I love Lance Archer. Honestly, I like Lance Archer more than Joey Janela. He's one of my favorite wrestlers right now. And I love Joey Janela.
Both of you guys.
That's not like taking anything away from him, but it's very obvious what's going to happen here. And if Joey does going to win, I won't be mad. Like
that would
if they,
be ridiculous.
If they surprise
I would be mad. That would be stupid.
Yeah, I would.
And I love Joey. Like, I'm actually a Joey fan more than Archer, but that story makes no sense.
Well, yeah, with what Lance Archer is doing right now, that would make no sense. But I mean, just as a Joey fan, I wouldn't be like screaming at the walls. But
yeah, I feel you.
I don't know. It's a squash match. That's what it is.
Yeah. AJ wanted to play both sides and say that if Joey won, it would be okay. But like even me as a fan of Joey, and that's something I think we should kind of take pride of in this show, is like we don't just say they have to book our favorite guys the way we want them to. Like, yeah, Joey's my favorite guy, but the story doesn't make sense for Joey to win in any way, shape, or form. And I prefer stories that make sense more than my favorite guys winning all the time. So, yeah, Archer winning here makes sense, but my guy is going to get dominated. And it's almost a perfect scenario for him in a sense where he can get destroyed and keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. But in 4 or 3 or 2 minutes, how do you tell that story? So that's where my worry comes in for Joey in this show, is I hope he gets some time. And I hope they can build something out of this, because it's weird. It came out of nowhere, but it feels like they're setting something up. It feels like this isn't just a one-off match, because they sort of set up a storyline for this.
It definitely is a one-off match, because let me echo the sentiment that I had last Wednesday with the Archer and the Cody feud that was built for weeks and weeks and weeks and was very entertaining television, and they had one match. And it's basically done now. There's no reason for me to believe that this one will be any different.
Well, maybe that's why.
I like Joey.
Go ahead.
I really like Joey. I don't, as a singles competitor right now, he's not doing it for me. I feel like he kind of gets lost in the shuffle as a singles competitor. I feel like his tag team with Sonny Kiss, though it's just starting, the segments they've had together, the matches they've had together,
it has potential.
They have good chemistry together. That right now is more interesting to me than Joey as a singles competitor, especially against Lance Archer. I feel like Lance is kind of like stuck in the middle of things right now. It looks like Cody is going to have an ongoing little feud with Jake Hager. I would much rather see the Lance Archer feud.
Oh yeah.
Even though they had a good match last week, and I had very, very low expectations for that match. It was a good match. I won't mind seeing it again, but that feud I would much rather see. And even after Archer presumably is going to win this match. I don't know what direction he's going to go in after that. I mean, is he just going to beat up guys in squash matches for the next month? Like, I need more out of his character because
you got to give him somebody substantial. Like, you got to give somebody who's over enough to be a threat. Like,
yes,
I hate to say it, but like, you know, I don't hate to say it, but if Brian Cage loses, that could be a good opponent for Lance Archer. Just two big guys
to throw
each other around.
Because those are two bad boys.
Yeah, those are two bad boys. You're right, but shit, I'm just trying to think of people with managers.
That's why I almost think
They're all
that
heels.
there's a chance that this, and hear me out here a little bit, that this Joey thing continues. Maybe not just him versus Joey, but then you get Sonny Kiss involved. Maybe Joey gets destroyed the whole match. Sonny Kiss comes out. Gets involved, then they set up a match versus Sonny Kiss. Sonny Kiss gets destroyed even faster. Joey makes the save. I mean, it's a very much not. It doesn't help Sonny or Joey much. It doesn't really do much for Archer either, but it does get all three of them on TV. It establishes the relationship between Sonny and Joey a little bit more. So I could see them just going in that direction to fill time and to just get these guys establish a somewhat of a relationship between them, somewhat of a dominant wrecking period for Archer, and because these guys won't stop in their matches, they keep getting destroyed, but they won't give up. He wants to actually put them down for good. There's a lot they could do with it. I don't necessarily expect it. I do agree with Phil that it makes more sense for these two to work as a tag team and for Archer to do his own thing as a singles, but I don't really know where any of that fits into what they actually have, so maybe they just continue something with all of them together.
I think we all want the same thing, though, and that's to see Lance Archer in some kind of a program.
Yeah, yes. Oh, for sure. Any kind of program, because Jake, and maybe it's just a situation where they want to keep Jake at home and don't want to use him a whole bunch, so they don't, and so without him, Archer isn't as effective because you don't have his promo guy who takes him from being like a mid-card level badass to a legit main event guy. So in that case, it makes a little bit of sense. We did see Jake Roberts, I think, the last couple weeks that whenever they've been on, you've seen Jake. So obviously you just want to keep him on the show, but keep it limited as well with all the COVID shit. So,
and it's tough with Archer because Archer, he can talk okay, but that's not his gimmick. His gimmick is screaming and hitting people.
Yeah.
So like you don't really want to see him talk. Like it would be kind of out of character for him to just sit down and promo. So you really do need Jake with him.
That's why I think him and Brian Cage are very similar characters because they're both very entertaining wrestling-wise. Not the best talkers, but they're paired with two really good managers who do the talking for them and do a very good job selling their character.
Yeah, that's 100% true. So whatever happens, I'm with you guys. We definitely need to see Archer in some type of real program, no matter what it is. And Joey, too, for that matter. That's been his biggest problem. He hasn't been in a single legitimate program that's gotten real time to keep going. Any program he's had has kind of been start and stop.
Kip Sabian thing is the closest
that was
thing.
Like rushed and not even given the time and the effort it should have. So hopefully he gets an opportunity to bounce back. But the next match we have to talk about, we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the show now because the last three matches on this card, Phil said last week's card was a little bit more stacked, but these three matches are actually quite entertaining. The first of the three being Private Party versus Omega and Hangman for the tag team titles. I could, again, see this potentially being a situation where the turn happens. They wanted to push it off a week to make something exciting happen here. But at the same time, we have seen this exact match before. It doesn't do a whole lot for me in terms of excitement. I don't know if you guys remember, but at the top of the year, the anniversary show, this match happened. Private Party versus Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. And we already know who won, Omega and Hangman, and I just imagine that being the same here.
Yeah, I don't remember that match, and that's not a good sign. That means it was not memorable enough for me to care about it. I hope this one will be better. But that said, I don't think the turn's going to happen here. I think if it happens, it'll be the main event. I think it'll be the last spot on the card because, I don't know. I could see it happening at Fight for the Fallen, though. I think that's reasonable, but I don't think it's happening
at a
here.
Live show. That's where I agree with you. I think that, and the biggest reason I kind of lost all the umph in me or whatever, the motivation, the confidence, I should say, that I had in it last week is because, yes, their spoilers are out, and I haven't even read into this match, but what I know is if the turn happened, the spoilers would be on every site. They would be much more talked about news. It would be the biggest thing. It would be in kin to what happened on NXT. We won't give away the result of that, but it would be very much, it'd be that level of like, oh my God, everyone would be talking about it. Joseph would have been not a dick about it, but he would have talked about that situation in the spoiler part of our chat. So just that alone tells me this isn't likely happening, but it could happen next week, like AJ said on the live show. If it doesn't happen next week, I'm going to be in the group of people who says it won't happen until the next pay-per-view, which does bum me out a little bit. Now
it does.
Now that they've built up a real main event group, it's not just Kenny, Hangman, Pac, and Jericho. They have a real, actual like Archer and Brian Cage and a couple other people. It's a lot more established. If you put Kenny and Hangman into programs with those guys, if you put Hangman against Archer in a program, like that would be dope.
Yeah.
Kenny against Brian Cage, like that's a dream program to some people. So it's very much time. I feel like I love the tag team, and maybe don't even split them up in that way. Maybe they just lose and go their separate ways, and you're like, oh wow, this is different. But it's time for them to stop being a team because they've elevated Hangman, like I said last time. So,
yeah, they did, and they've done a great job of it. Like, hats off. Like, this is one of the best ways to get a guy over I've seen in a long time. To pair him with somebody who definitely is on that caliber and keep him there and show him off and make him the center of attention and make everybody fucking love him, and everybody loves him. And that's why a heel turn would be a little hard, because even if he heels turns, nobody's gonna be like, oh fuck Hangman now.
And we were so upset about how the Hangman push went early on, and even through COVID, because he didn't. It went back to the same situation of don't give him as much attention, sort of bring it all back. And then now that he's back, it's like we never missed a step, even without the fans. Like we've said it plenty of times with Orange Cassidy and a couple other AEW wrestlers. I've never said it for Hangman, where I'm like, yeah, this segment would have been way better with fans or whatever, or he really needs the fans. Like he would be better with fans, but you don't need him for Hangman segments because he's just badass on his own.
Yeah.
Like his moment,
honestly,
100%. His moment with Kenny in that match, or not even a match, but whatever it was called, the Stadium Stampede, where they cheers and they got the milk in the shot, like that. Yeah. That's one of the biggest moments, at least to me as a fan of the entire match. So it's really interesting to see how Hangman has been elevated by a tag team. Like I never really thought that would be the way to do it, and here we are. So they did a great job there. That's really a match I'm looking forward to. I don't know which one we should talk about next. Let's just talk about, we'll keep it going with the Elite. We have the Young Bucks and FTR taking on the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and the Blade. This seems like a glorified squash match at the end of the day, at least to me.
Yes.
As much as I love the Lucha Bros and don't want to put them in that category, like there's 4 teams involved in this. And Young Bucks and FTR seem to have the most story built, but they're on the same team, so that's where it becomes very one-sided. You should expect what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and the only way they lose is if there's miscommunication and they start beating the hell out of each other. But I don't think that's going to happen. And that's the only foreseeable way I could think of them even possibly losing. Yeah. So I'm not going to play devil's advocate for that because I don't think they're going to go that route. So yeah, definitely seems like a squash match. And it seemed weird because they were advertising this whenever the title got bumped, kind of like the last match, like, oh, we're gonna put this on last now. And I don't know if they are still, because I would definitely prefer Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy to go on last. But
I could see the point of this has more potential to have some type of cliffhanger where they still win, but there's beef, or they win off of one team turning or something. I'm at the point where I personally would much rather see the Young Bucks turn and be the bad, like, and I might be in the minority.
Yes. No, totally on you.
I'm in a position where I don't want to cheer for them. And it's not even necessarily so much against them. We've cheered for them for like probably 4 years now, after being really against them for 4 years. So I'm just ready to be anti-Young Bucks.
And there's something about them. There's something about them that's easy to hate if they wanted you to hate them.
That's why I almost feel like they're pushing it in that direction, because they're doing that shit. You know what I mean? They're giving it a little bit more.
they're kind of making you think that FTR is going to be the people who turn, but it easily could be the Young Bucks.
Definitely.
I do agree with you here that it is a glorified squash match. When I said earlier that storyline-wise, the SCU Dark Order match was the thing I'm looking forward to second most, it is for that reason, because, yeah, you could go in the direction where FTR and the Young Bucks lose because of miscommunication, and it's totally plausible because we've been building up a match between the two teams.
And
for
Butcher and Blade
like
did
a
get a
month.
lot of time, but it's just I still
Yeah,
can't
they
buy
did.
into them as a team that like
No,
that's
I
where
agree.
it all goes off the rails. Lucha Brothers 100%, I could believe it. Butcher and Blade, no.
You took the words out of my mouth because it feels like there's 3 tag teams on a certain level, and then there's a 4th tag team who's involved in the match that you can't make the argument that they're on the same level.
Yep.
They've just had such little time. Like I can almost
Exactly.
I feel like I can almost remember everything they've done, which is kind of bad because they've been
Pretty
around
much.
for a long time. Like they've been around for a while at least. And for me to remember almost every little segment that they've done isn't good because there should be more segments than that. There should be more, and it's not even because they were that entertaining. It's just like, yeah, I remember they did this, I remember they did that, but it's never been a lot. And especially through COVID and all, just before COVID, they weren't being featured. Then COVID happens, not featured. They've probably been featured for a month and a half, which has been the most that they've gotten featured at all. And it still hasn't, it doesn't resonate for me. Now, a win here, I will give them the credit that a win here would make me believe in the Butcher and Blade just a tiny bit more. But it doesn't, it would still be like off of, there's no way it would be a clean victory. So you can't give us much off of that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy to me is that somehow the Alley situation with her joining them and then leaving and so quick momentum out, because it's kind of like the brain powers that be backstage were like, okay, yeah, we're not going to waste you on this nothing tag team. You're going to go do your own thing.
Yeah.
It's a
That
little
was kind of
upsetting,
weird
too.
to me how little that lasted. It was
Yeah.
so brief.
It's a little upsetting too because they have potential as a tag team. They look menacing. They're not bad in the ring.
They're
Like, they could do
Joseph's
something
favorite
with them.
team. Shout out to our
Nah,
boy
I
Joseph.
expect- Joseph aside, I especially like the Butcher. He's got a nice, unique look to him. You know,
He stood out a little
Blade
bit
is
more.
like another
He stood out a
guy.
little bit more in the beginning because there weren't as many big guys in AEW, but he still
Yeah,
does have a
that's true,
unique
too.
look to him. So
True.
it's just a
I wish
situation
they
they
had them
needed.
join the Dark Order and not
Yeah.
fucking
It would make
Diva
sense,
Boys.
man. They're all
Yeah.
broody motherfuckers.
Yeah, that team would then now be like kind of crazy. They just haven't even gotten the momentum that the Dark Order got. Like, you remember, the Dark Order is they're probably still undefeated as a tag team. The Butcher and Blade haven't gotten that treatment. They won the first week and lost the next week to Cody. Like, I can remember that for a fact, and that will always leave a taste in my mouth. Like, it's something that's hard to come back from. Because AEW has such a short-lived time frame, almost everyone on the roster has something that resonates with me as like a memorable thing that almost holds them back, and they have to overcome it. And that is the biggest thing for them. Like, they've had such a bad string of booking. This is it too, because they'll get booked into a storyline where you almost take them serious, and they're gonna lose. They're gonna be the team to take the loss. Like, there's the fact that they're in it is to lose. Lucha Brothers aren't taking this loss.
No.
And who
You're
is
totally
excited
dead
to
on.
see fucking Pentagon Jr. again? It has been so long. It's incredible to think about that. Like 3, maybe 4 months since Pentagon has been around. Phoenix got a little bit of a run there as a singles guy, but not enough for it to be anything real eventful.
Yeah.
So it's
And
cool
it
that
sucks 'cause he
Pentagon's
got
back.
hurt.
Yeah, and
I'd
so
have
it's like
got
we're getting them
him
both
through.
back at the same time in a way, without
Yeah.
so I'm excited for that, just for those two. But otherwise, the match has absolutely nothing for me. In our main event match of the show, or maybe not main event of the show, but main event of the podcast, because it's the one I'm most looking forward to. We got Chris Jericho taking on Orange Cassidy. We started out the show with a bit of an intro from the road to Fyter Fest Week 2. They put it on YouTube earlier today, and Jericho cut a little bit of a promo. Jim Ross was giving his opinion on Orange Cassidy as we came into the show, and it's interesting because I can agree with Jim Ross to an extent on the fact of he's saying, or if you guys remember, he said, I didn't like Orange Cassidy at first, but he has since grown on me. And it probably didn't take me as long as it took Jim Ross, but I didn't love Orange Cassidy before he went to AEW. I can recall when Cody Rhodes said, you know, we brought in an extra guy. We accidentally signed too many people for the Casino Battle Royale, and because I told Orange Cassidy he could be in, and I was like, why the fuck? Like, it didn't click for me. It took me a couple shows. So, what do you guys think of this match?
I'm super excited. Unlike you, I mean, I've always been like pro Orange Cassidy. The first time I saw him in
You're just
Chikara,
such a
I was like
wrestling hipster, AJ.
But he was like my guy. When I was watching the Kentucky Gentleman show on YouTube, I am a hipster. You're right, goddamn. But he was like, I was like, this guy's great. I want to see more of him. And now he's on TV every week, and just goddamn, it makes me happy.
Becoming a star, bro. Not even just on TV though. Like he is. If anyone has crossed over into a more prominent mainstream role in the real world, and I'm not saying he's like a superstar, but if anyone in AEW who has come from the indies now has bigger name for themselves than Orange Cassidy, you would have to argue with me for a while as to who it could be, because he is
Adam Page.
I mean, he was in Ring of Honor and New Japan and shit, but he probably still, like, to normal people, he might be known, but, like, dude, my little brother, that's what I kind of base it off of. He don't pay attention to AEW, but he knows who Orange Cassidy is from, like, memes and GIFs, and I see, like, casual fans, bro, like, just casual friends from New York who I have added on Facebook talking about, oh, that's the cool dude, like, and I'm just, it makes me like happy because I remember, like AJ, like I was never a big fan of Orange Cassidy, but I know where he's come from. I've been following him by default because he's been involved in indies I watch, so it's cool. It's cool to see, but it's just, and it's so unexpected.
I feel so dumb for saying this, but I don't fully know who's going to win, because I really think it's possible that Chris Jericho goes, I want to put this guy over for all the reasons you just listed. If there's any guy in AEW who's become a star, it's Orange Cassidy. And so I think Chris Jericho, to an extent, or to a large extent, recognizes that and realizes he could do a lot here by putting him over. On the same coin, you don't have to put him over to give him the rub here.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we saw it last week, especially with Penelope Ford, and I could see the same type of scenario where the match just is so incredible. Orange gets so close, and it just is one of those out of nowhere moments where you can accept that it happened, because maybe down the line it could go the other way. It's one of those, if they set the match up where Jim Ross can say, if these guys fight 10 times, I couldn't tell you who's going to win. Each one's going to win 5 times. Like, if they do that trope of whatever he says, then we'll know that they pushed Orange Cassidy in this match. But I'm concerned, honestly, because I don't see Jericho really putting him over, man. He's kind of waited a while. Who has Jericho let beat him that was significant?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, and they're protecting Jericho for a good reason.
He was, at the very least, in the very beginning, the star. He's kind of helped create new ones, but this is a case where he really could create a new one. Where do you go from Orange Cassidy winning?
Yeah, that's true. Because it's not like you're gonna put him on a singles run and have him go on a tear or go for the title. That's not gonna work. And so I don't know. I feel like just giving him the rub is probably the best thing to do. Just have him lose, give him the rub, have him go the distance. I don't even think it needs to be a draw, like you said. I think if you just put on a banger of a match, that's all you need to do. But it's still tough for me to say. I'm still in this place of like, I don't know, and I'm glad I don't know. I really don't want to know. I'm really glad that I'm conflicted here. So. Like I said, it's kind of dumb to say because it's Chris Jericho and it's Orange Cassidy, but, you know, they've done crazy shit before. Crazy shit's happened in wrestling. I'm not going to completely discard it.
Yeah, man, this is the match I'm looking forward to the most on the card, both for storyline-wise and for in-ring storyline-wise. I don't know if it's going to be the main event, because with the AEW booking, it doesn't feel like they put the best match on the main event. More often than not, I could really see the 8-man tag being the main event.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because this doesn't feel like the end. The next week is Fight for the Fallen, so it almost feels like now this is almost the middle show, so they have to create a cliffhanger to make us.
Yeah.
So.
if this does end up being the main event, it's got to hit a few bullet points for me. And for me, Andrew, you said to comparison to another match, the Penelope Ford Hikaru Shida match, where Ford doesn't win, but she looks like a star doing it. To go even farther back, this has got to be like Bret Hart and Stone Cold kind of thing, where the more over superstar should win, but the guy who loses has got to put everything into it, and it's got to be undeniable to anybody who watches it, casual fan or not, knows that guy tried his hardest and he didn't win, but he still looks like $1 million doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
That's
I
a great
agree.
comparison.
So, and they definitely, like, these two could do it, and I almost wonder, like, Orange Cassidy probably won't get his first big epic win until there are actually fans around. I think that creates a better story for him. As much as I do want to see a victory for him here because of win over Jericho, like, that's how much more significant does it get? There's only been one other champion, and Jericho has only lost, I think, in singles competition to Mox. So at that point, that's the biggest win Orange Cassidy could get. So I think that if you want to give him a win like that, you want the pop to be there for it. You want the reaction for it. But they've done a lot of stuff that I would have thought you would want the reaction for. And obviously, they can't wait forever. They can't just do fucking nothing. So,
yeah. I do believe on your point, if Orange Cassidy wins, no matter how it happens, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
I feel the better storyline is Jericho and Cassidy have a really good match. Jericho wins, but it's undeniable that Cassidy is like at least comparable on the same level.
You could and you could do so much with a loss to Jericho if he does look like a superstar. You could easily have even Cody like invite him to do an open challenge. Like there's so much you could do just based off of him being elevated to that level of stardom and not even have to compete with Jericho. It doesn't have to be a story with Jericho. But if he beats Jericho, it doesn't feel like. Granted, yes, Cody could say that he challenges him or he could challenge for the title, but it wouldn't have that story of like an underdog coming back. I could see Cody being like, wow, you fought so hard and got screwed at the very end. Let me give you an opportunity. As opposed to Orange Cassidy winning and just demanding an opportunity. Like, there's no real story right now to Orange winning. It's weird because the more we talk through it, the more it just seems unlikely that the guy we want to win isn't going to win. But in the grand scheme of things, it'll be for the best. Like, I have no doubt that this match doesn't elevate him. Like, we've talked about it before with Cody where we're like, man, I really hope that he can make this guy look good. And if it was Cody versus Orange Cassidy doing the exact same story, I would be a lot more nervous. So the fact that it's Jericho and Orange, like they're both pros, man. It's going to be probably one of the best Dynamite matches we've seen in an interesting way, too. So,
definitely. Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, if it was Cody, I would be nervous. But with Jericho, because even if Orange Cassidy is lacking in some way, Jericho can pick up almost anybody's slack.
No doubt, man. No doubt. That does wrap up the card. We won't bother giving predictions. We kind of ran through the whole show, so we won't go through top to bottom with predictions. Unless you guys are dying to predict if Nyla Rose
we kind of already
did. An undeniable
Yeah.
source. So you can gather our predictions based upon what we said without us actually saying them. We will be back on Wednesday to talk about Fyter Fest and all of the happenings there. Hopefully Kira will be back. She was a little tired tonight, couldn't make the show, which is fine. But she'll be back on, Wednesday? Wednesday after Fyter Fest. This was our 101th episode. I didn't mention our 100th episode because I'm a fool. So we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the show. We're talking about it a little bit now. So thank you, everyone, for sticking with us through all these episodes. All of our consistent viewers, followers, everyone on Twitter, Instagram. We'll go through where you can find us there. AJ, go ahead and plug your social media because Phil is chugging.
You can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy.
And where can they find you, big boy?
Do I still have the thing below me or above me? Where is it located?
It's above you, bro.
All right, right there. That's how you spell my name.
Now you're pointing at the YouTube. You got to get under
whatever.
it like Sabu. You got to... You're still too high. It's all right. They know where to find you. You guys can find the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod. We're on Instagram at AllEliteEverything. We're also on Twitter at the All Elite Podcast, and we're on YouTube at youtube.com/All Elite Podcast. If you're already watching us on YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. You can find me on Twitter at All Elite Andy. And until next time, thank you guys for tuning in. See ya.
Bye.
Goodbye.